this thing is smoking. Oh, hey guys, Dustin here, Smoking Eagles Rod Shop. Back with another video for you. Mind my Ford wrench there. Now, if you've been following along my van videos, you know I am being plagued by the blue oval gremlins. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a Ford guy, I don't know a whole lot about these engines, but one thing I do know is an engine with over 90,000 miles probably needs a timing chain and gears if it ain't been done, and I know this motor has not been done yet. I think I have timing issues. That may be the culprit. It may have jumped a tooth, it may, who knows, but one thing I know for certain, it does need changed if I'm gonna trust this thing any further than my mailbox. And I'd like to be able to drive a couple of hours from home and sleep in the van like my ancestors did, you know, at Woodstock. Have a good time, hang out, maybe go to a car show or something. And yeah, I'm just gonna dive in. Like I said, I've never done a timing chain or anything on a Ford before. I'm sure I can handle it, but I am definitely gonna be learning some things. And if you're new to Fords like I am, you can learn with me. And if you're not, you can make fun of me in the comments. That's fine. I don't read and cry about any of the hurtful things you people say about me. Oh, sorry. Stay in character. I'm also gonna have a good opportunity to clean up some of this wiring and stuff in here, really clean off the distributor, and just kind of double, triple check everything, bolt it all back together, and then we'll probably be right where I am now, except at least I know it'll be in time. I've never even put a timing light on this, so who knows? Who knows what we're gonna find? All right, guys, so all the parts are here. So I got a new water pump because if we're gonna pull the timing chain, might as well put a new water pump on it because we all know I'm gonna get like a mile down the road and that thing's gonna be spewing antifreeze everywhere, so might as well do it. Got our new timing gear set here. Couple of water pump gaskets, because you know, you never know what comes with what and what's gonna get broken. And we got our gasket set. And Dad already drained the antifreeze out of this thing so we can get working on, gotta take the fan shroud out, get the fan off, and then start pulling everything off the front of the engine. So that's what we're working on now. And yeah, I believe this fan shroud just has 4 bolts around it, and then it should slide back, then we can get to the fan, and then the fan and the shroud can come out together as one piece, and then we can start working on knocking the stuff off the front of the motor there. I'm not a Ford guy, so this is gonna be lots of fun. Guy at work was telling me, don't do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. I said, man, there's an awful lot of tricks you gotta know to this dang thing. Like if this is a Chevy, I just take like 4 bolts out. I know I'm spoiled, but whatever.
And they'd all be the same size.
Right. At least there's no metric in here. All right, guys, so got the fan shroud out of there and the fan off. There's like 4 bolts in there. And now Dad's loosened up the power steering pump. There's like 4 bolts on that will allow that to loosen up. It's these 1, 2, 3, not the top one. And then you got your adjuster up here, you loosen it, and that allows that to slide down enough you can get your belt off. We got to get the alternator loose, get that belt off, get that out of the way, and then we need to rotate the motor around to top dead center. All right, so we got the alternator propped up back in there perfectly, so I didn't have to undo any of the wiring. We got our power steering pump zip tied up out of the way so it's not gonna knock a hole in the radiator. And now all we've got to do is get the water pump off, the torque converter, or not torque converter, duh, the bottom pulley and the harmonic balancer off. But I think we should hold off on the water pump and pull this pulley and the harmonic balancer off first, That way we don't dump coolant all over that stuff and get it super gross, because I'm probably gonna have to lay on the ground down there to get the bolts loose, or at least figure out what size they are. And we need to rotate the engine around to top dead center. So here's what we're battling, other than me dropping everything. Here's what we're battling. We're looking for the timing marks on the harmonic balancer. But as you can see, you can't really read much. And I've wire wheeled the heck out of everything, and there's just, you almost can't see. There's some lettering right there, but you can't read any of it. That says C2. That says like DCOE, but I don't see a line anywhere. All right, so I can't hardly see the marks. They're just barely on there, and you know, being a Ford, instead of putting the marks on the timing tab, they put the marks on the balancer where they can rot away, and yeah. So my game plan is I'm gonna pull the harmonic balancer off, put it on the bench, clean it all up, mark all the marks so that they're clearly visible, put it back on the van, then I can rotate it around to top dead center, and then we know the motor's where we want it to be. We can pull everything off of there and we can check the slack in it and blah, 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 and go on with life. I know it sounds kind of excessive and stupid and a waste of time, but I've got to be able to read those marks to time this thing after I put the new chain on it anyway, so might as well just, you know, clean it up now, right? So that is the path forward. So I got that off of there. If you've never used one of these before, this is just a harmonic balancer puller. Set it down on there. I got 2 bolts here. They give you assorted bolts, but of course you can use anything you got in your bolts bin. I actually use the bolts for the pulley that goes on the front of this, and then I highly recommend, they give you this, and it's supposed to push on the center of your crank and self-center, but it's pushing right on the front threads of your crank. If you've ever worked on cars before and you tried to put a crank bolt in and you can't get it to start, it's because somebody used that and they cranked the hell out of the top couple of threads in the crank, which is a big, big no-no. So what I like to do is find me a washer like that. It just fits down inside the harmonic balancer and pushes on your crank, and then that self-centers inside the center of that washer and doesn't booger up the end of your crank. Sometimes it's tricky to find a washer the right size, but I promise you, you'll thank me later for doing it. You can see that one fits right down in there and works perfectly. So that's what we did. Now, as for those timing marks, holy crap, what a crappy design there, Ford. You guys see them timing mark lines? Try and get it so it'll focus. I can just barely see them. That's a 0. No, I can't even tell what that number is. 30. That's the 30. You come all the way over here, and that says, I don't know, something. That says 0. And right there it says TC for top dead center is that line right there. So I'm going to clean this up really good and mark these lines so we can actually read them. Then we can slide this back on, put that bolt in, and we can rotate this around and put the engine on top dead center. What a nightmare. But I'll get this cleaned up real quick. All right, guys, so I cleaned that all up, and I got it all painted up, got all my marks painted. Looks pretty good. That ought to work. Took my little Dremel here and just made it happen. Now I'm going to go toss it on the van, and we can set it on top dead center, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys, so I tossed my harmonic balancer back on there, and as you can see, I've got it on our 0 mark, just like we discussed. And then I came up here, and on the cap, this is the number 1 plug. It goes over to our number 1 cylinder. If I lift this up, our rotor is pointed right at the number 1 cylinder. So that tells me that we are, in fact, on top dead center. Everything is lined up. So I am going to pull the harmonic balancer back off of there now that we know the engine's on top dead center, and we're going to continue tearing all this crap off of here so we can get that timing chain and gear off. Now, I do need to pull the fuel pump off of this, and that's a brand new fuel pump. Well, it's a year old. I know it's crusty looking, but that's a brand new fuel pump. I don't believe I have to pull the oil pressure gauge out. I believe I just need to pull the water pump and all the bolts out of the front of here. I'll kind of figure it out as I go. Here's where I'm currently at. I got all the bolts out except for that one, and that one for the old water pump, and there might be another one up in there that I can't get to yet. They are super in there, boys, and it goes all the way back through all that crap and into the block. I know what you're saying, just heat the block up right back in there. Can't do that. There's gas everywhere down there. And over here, can't really heat the block up there because it's just that aluminum housing or whatever that is. I don't know. It looks like aluminum to me. I guess what I'm trying to say here, guys, is I'm pretty well screwed and I'm probably gonna break something if I'm not super careful, which is what I'm trying to do. So, hear my phone ringing. Wish me luck. I need it. All right, I've got some good news to report, guys. So, this bolt here, I have got it out. It is coming free. This one over here is still fighting me, but I put some PB blaster on that stuff. I had to go to town, pick Matt up from work, and swing by the local meat market, grab some cheeseburgers and brats for dinner. No big deal. Let that stuff all soak in there. Now, my options going forward. I'm telling you, it's worth the wait. Take your time and just work these bolts. What I've been doing is just work it a little, work it back, work it a little, work it back, spray PB blaster in there, work it a little, work it back, because this one finally came loose. I got enough of that PB blaster to work down through there and I could get it loose. This has only been backed out about 2 turns. It's still super tight, but it is turning. So I turn it a quarter turn, turn it back, turn it a quarter turn, turn it back, turn it, and just start really working that thing. That's what I'm doing with this one here. I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. So I tighten it, got a little bit there, and then I go loose. I hit that paywall. You can feel the paywall where you're gonna create more trouble. Then you go the other way. Snug her back up just a little bit. Then you go up against that paywall again. And then you go back the other way. And then it'll slowly start to come free. You'll get a little more room, little more room, little more room. You're working that stuff down in there to get that freed up. It's your only option other than breaking this thing off. Now, if I can't get this off of here by doing this, and it's end game, right? I do have one option left. I can cut the head off of this bolt, pull the water pump off. If I do that, then when I take the bolts out of the timing cover, I can pull it off. Now I've got this big old stud sticking out of here. Yeah, I don't have the head of the bolt anymore to hang on to, but I can hang on to this with vice grips. I can weld a nut onto it. I got all kinds of options that are better than breaking this bolt off inside the threads of this block and trying to drill the block out, re-tap it. You don't want to go there. You can heat this up, you can cool it down. Like, you have lots of options and about 3 inches worth of, you know, mistakes, engineering, learning, whatever you want to call it, redneck life hacks. You got all kinds of options there. But once you snap this bolt off at the face of that block, buddy, you are freaking cooked. So take your time. Don't get ahead of yourself. As frustrating as it can be, You want to just grab a bigger breaker bar and snap that bolt off, just do not do it. Take your time, and just work it back and forth. It's worth the hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of screwing with it to just get it out in one piece. I'm gonna go get a 12-point socket instead of a 6-point so I can get another little quarter turn on this and just keep bumping that paywall, and hitting her with the love juice. We'll get her out of there, guys. I got faith. And you'll be happy to know, guys, my patience paid off. Check this out. Oh, is that not gnarly? Now I might have got lucky and been able to throw a breaker bar on there and got that out, but knowing my luck, that would have snapped off in the block and added like 30 hours to this project. So just goes to show that a little bit of patience and time will save you a lot of headaches. So just keep your cool and just be patient. It'll all work out in the end. I let that PB blaster soak down in there, and man, either I'm that good or I'm that lucky, and I'll take either. So I'm gonna get the rest of this bolt out of here, get this water pump off of here, and we'll see what we got next. Need to get the timing cover off there. I know there's some bolts down on the bottom I'm gonna have to lay down and get to, but yeah. Get this done. I'll meet you guys back here in just a minute once I get this water pump off of here. Now that I got that water pump off of there and I sweeped up as much crap as I could out of this cavity here that's just kind of there, we'll clean all that up once we get this timing cover off of here. I didn't want to get a bunch of dirt and debris down in there, but it looks like we've got a bolt here, one over there. We got a couple up in here, behind here, boom, boom. And then there's a couple on the bottom of the oil pan there that go up into this cover. And then I think this will come off of here. Again, I'm not 100% certain. I'll go real slow and make sure I don't break anything because whole lot of unobtainium going on. No, but seriously, I gotta be really careful. I don't want to break that. It's not like a Chevy or a Buick where I got like 4 or 5 other ones laying around that I could either use or piece together and make work. This is Dustin only has one of these item. Yep. So I was right, guys. I'm down here on the bottom of the van trying to get these bolts out, and I got 4. I got 2 on this side, 2 on that side. Now the 2 on the inside here, they're 1/2 inch, and the 2 on the outside are 7/16. Figured I'd give you a heads up before you crawled down underneath yours, and didn't bring every tool you own. I don't know why Ford didn't just use 1/2 inch or 7/16. Just pick one and stick with it. Jeez. And I know, don't look at them. Don't look at those transmission lines. Yeah, they've been eyeballing me, just daring me. Come on, bro, bump me, just bump me. I will spray fluid all over your face and be the next thing on your must-fix list. I am not gonna disturb these because they don't currently leak. I already got my hands full. So, I am definitely gonna be giving that Cobra its space because I ain't trying to get bit in the face. I'm gonna get these bolts out. Oh, you also have to have a swivel in order to fit your socket up in there. Just a little FYI for you. I'm gonna get these out and meet you guys back up on the top side. All right, I got all the bolts out. Oh, my light went out. Got all the bolts out of there. Now, looks like we've got 4 long and 2 short, and then we've got 2 long and 2 short for the bottom of the timing cover. And 2 of them get your timing mark, so don't forget where your timing mark bracket goes. I'll clean all this stuff up before we reassemble it, but the 2 short ones go up here on these top 2 sides. Let me get a light in here, and I'll see if I can't get this thing to pop off of here. Oh, thought I was gonna need that. Apparently not. Look how sloppy that is. It's got lots of tension on this side, lots of slop on this side. Look at that, guys. It definitely ain't gonna make it run worse, but the plastic coating is still on the timing gear. So that's good. That means that stuff's not down in the pickup tube. Okay guys, so you've got this oil kind of seal shield thing that goes over top of your gear. Just like a small block Chevy, you just get a screwdriver behind there and kind of walk it out of there. Be careful not to bend it up because you don't want it binding up in your chain and creating shavings in the bottom of your motor. Now, this is different than a Chevy. This is the fuel pump drive gear thing. It kind of rotates on this. It's pretty cool. I'm not going to slide the 2 apart because I'm afraid I'll break them, but it has that little locator tab there. I'll clean this all up later and get it all cleaned up. So that little locator tab and that bolt goes straight down through the center of there, and it locates inside this little hole in this top timing chain. Now, this is a factory gear. You can see it's got its little tooth mark right here, and then down here, our keyway on the crank has the dot just above it. You really can't see it on this gear. Maybe you guys can, but I couldn't hardly see it without a mirror. And it's got a lot of sludge and slime on it. So I came over here and I checked our new one. Here's the new one. It's got a dot here on the bottom of the gear instead of a little tooth, but again, it's aftermarket. And then here's our bottom gear, and you can see it's got its keyway, and then it's got the dot right above it. So that tells me we're good to go. And just like a Chevy, you want your dots together. If you were off 180 degrees and we didn't check the cap and make sure we were on the compression stroke, then I believe one dot would be up on the bottom and this dot here would be up on the top. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a Ford guy, but I know on Chevys it's like that. It's either one rotation puts them top and top, or 2 rotations is top and top, and then back 1 or 2 rotations and then they're together, because when they're together it's compression stroke. When they're apart it is exhaust stroke. Not a big deal as long as you put it back together the way you take it apart. Then everything should be copacetic with your distributor. But anyway, long story short, I need to get these off of here, and this is obviously bad. So here's how it says to measure your deflection. Essentially, they want you to rotate the engine to the left until the left side of your chain should be, this side is nice and tight, and this side is whoop, 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 sloppy. Then they want you to mark a point. So like up here on this diagram, I'll show you. They've got point A marked, and they're measuring from here over to the chain. And then they want you to rotate the engine the right direction. Rotate your crank to the right until all the chain slop is removed from the left side and over to the right side, so opposite. So now, instead of this side being tight, they want this side to be tight and this side to be sloppy. And then they want you to measure from the same point from here into your chain. You're going to subtract the 2 numbers, and then it says on here 330, 361, 391 inches should not exceed 11/16 of an inch deflection. Everything else should not exceed a 1/2 inch, which I think you guys saw. This thing had a ton of slop in it, so obviously needs replaced. And we're in this deep. Who's going to tear their engine down that far and then be like, it's probably fine. It's got another 20,000 miles in it. I'll save my 30 bucks. Anyway, I'm going to get all this stuff cleaned up. I got a lot of crap to clean up. Bolts, nuts, washers, the timing cover, water pump, the front of the block, all my gasket surfaces. So I'm not going to bore you guys with all that stuff. I'm going to get that stuff all cleaned up. I'll get all our new parts lined up here and ready to go back together. And then I'll meet you back here. We'll start tossing this thing back together. So, yeah, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. So, got everything cleaned up here. All our gasket surfaces are nice and clean. And I drained the oil, so whatever junk was in there, obviously left, because we did get some antifreeze in there. And obviously, no matter how hard I tried, there's some junk that fell down in there. No big deal. So what I've got here is I've got a cup full of kerosene, and I've got a pan underneath the van, and I'm just gonna pour this right down in the front of there, because unlike normal, we actually have access to the front, the highest point of the oil pan. Well, I can pour that kerosene in there and it'll wash garbage down towards the drain hole, and we should be able to get a lot of sludge out of the bottom of that oil pan. But I mean, there's sludge in there, guys. Let's be honest. It's got 90,000 miles on it. There's sludge. I could clean on this thing all day, all afternoon, try and get all that crusty stuff out of there. But the rest of the engine still has crusty sludge all over it. It ran with it before. It'll run with it now. We're just gonna have new, unworn out timing chain, so our timing will be a lot better. And I cleaned out all the sludge that was gonna be in our way of our gaskets and all kinds of stuff. You know, I cleaned it up enough. You know, I didn't go overboard. We're gonna try and rinse some sludge out of the bottom of the pan there, and we're gonna go on with life. I do need to swap out this front main seal, so we'll get that popped out of the timing cover. I'll show you guys how to do that here in just a few minutes. But yeah, need to dump this right down in here. And hear it peeing down there. I'll do a couple more cups of that, and that'll just flush some stuff out of the bottom of the pan, like I said, and then we'll get on that cover. So I got our old seal out of the timing cover there. Got this cool little seal remover tool, pink. These are cheap, couple bucks. If you don't have one, of course you can use a screwdriver, a hammer, and a chisel, or whatever you need to do. Then I got a bearing tool, so I'm just gonna set it right down on top of the new one. I do like to put just a thin coat of RTV around it. Set her down on there square, tap her in. If you don't have that, you can use a block of wood, 2x4, whatever. I've been doing it that way for years. Works great. Just kind of set that on there. And that's in there. It's good to me. So here's our new timing chain and gears. We got our dot, Of course, they need to line up just like that. This uses this little pin as a locator. Now to get the old one off, it was stuck on there pretty good, but of course this thing been on there for, well, since 1976, so I had to use a pry bar on both sides and just kind of give it a little bit of pressure and just kind of walk it off of there. Boop, 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 boop. Came right off. Looks a little bit different, but it's the same thing. You've got these little slots here. I've got a little thing of break-in oil, so I'm going to be squirting a bunch of oil all over this thing once I get it put in there, just to make sure that it's lubed up really good. And yeah, I think it's time to slide this baby on there. Oh, here's my bolt. Well, that was my bolt and washer right there. Boom. And then this is our fuel pump driver. So I'll also put some break-in oil all over this when I put it together. Make sure I wipe any crumbs off of it. And then this should be our oil slosh ring, whatever you want to call it. Goes on the front of the bottom gear on the crank. There's a little slot that drives it. All right, so I've wiped this stuff off all about 50 times at least. Put a little break-in oil on this, a little down here on this. Just so that stuff will slide together easy. Should be able to. Put that baby right on like so. That should line up right like that. Come on. Get on there. Come on, little guy. I gotta get out of here. This thing's digging into my stomach. I'll tell you what, this hood latch is in about the most unuseful spot possible. Put a little more oil on that. I'm not very excited about this van life right now. Oh yeah. All right, so we need to torque this down to 40 to 45 foot-pounds. That's 43. Toss some oil on this bad boy. This side is not the same as this side. The hole spacing is different. So I gotta make sure I get those gaskets correct. And then we got that bottom rubber gasket there. And then I got this big old gasket that's gonna go across on there. And let's go check them out. So here's one. And as you can see, this is gonna go right down there and those holes line up. Now this is a little deep. I'm gonna have to cut that off and trim it to fit. Same with this one here. I'm gonna have to trim the top edge of this so that it fits. But not a big deal. And then we've got this gasket up here. Fits perfectly. So that's good. And then I got this gasket here. And again, I need to glue it in there. Now it does have this little slot right there. And that is for the little tab on that. They kind of interlock like that. Or at least that's what they're supposed to do. We're just gonna fill that all with a good chunk of RTV. Not too much, but enough that it seals really good. And gotta remember, you always wanna put a little bit of oil down in your oil seal. Make sure she's lubed up good. Doesn't leak everywhere. So you can see, I got this one trimmed perfectly. So it fits like a glove. Now, I'm gonna do the other side. You can see, obviously, it's way too long. So, I just kind of eyeball it there. Needs quite a bit cut off. Cut a chunk off. Oh, needs to go a little more. So I'll cut a little bit more off. Looks like I could trim just a little bit off that inside corner. Perfect. So I'm gonna wipe that all off with alcohol. I'll wipe this all off with alcohol. I'll get Permatex on here, stick my gasket on, and then I'll Permatex on the backside, and then I will hunt down my bolts, slap this baby together, and it should be 12 to 18. So we're gonna go with 15 and give it the bump of luck. don't forget to put this on there. I forgot to show you guys putting that on when I torqued this on. Don't forget that. That's very important. Now, time to bolt this on. All right, as you can see, I got the timing cover on there. Now, a little word of advice, a little tip from me. You got to put the bottom 4 bolts in first. I snugged them down by hand with my ratchet. Not super tight, but just, you know, a little past hand tight. Kind of sucked that gasket down into the bottom of the oil pan. Just enough that I could get all my other bolts started. Then I loosened them up just a little bit and just barely snugged them. And torqued all these bolts to their torque spec, and then I went back down below and just hand tightened those. My torque wrench doesn't go down to 8 to 11 pounds, and I wasn't going to dig out a 1/4 inch drive torque wrench for some oil pan bolts. Now, if it's going to leak, it's going to leak on these corners, so make sure you get a lot of Permatex in those corners there. It's good for you. And yeah, this gasket tried to squirt out on me a little bit, so I kind of loosened it up and tucked it back in there a little bit. But yeah, that would be my advice, is make sure you plan to put those bottom 4 bolts in first, because you got to compress that bottom gasket enough that all the other bolt holes line up. I did not know that. I learned it today with you. So yeah, little word of advice. Now I got to get on this water pump, because a couple of these water pump bolts actually help hold this timing cover on. So I want to get those in before that Permatex sets up on that timing cover gasket. And I've already been screwing with it for plenty long enough. One more quick thing. Don't forget to put your timing mark tab back on when you bolt those bolts in there. So I'm over here at my water pump. Got the new one, got the old one. One tip I got for you. Another tip. I'm full of tips today. I pulled this water pump off and I put all the bolts back in exactly where they went, and I just laid it here. Now that I'm getting ready to put the new water pump on, I know that I can take like this bolt here and I can just take it out of the old water pump and move it directly over to that bolt hole in the new one. And I know that's exactly where that goes. Same with this one. And then the ones that hold it down, I know exactly where they go. So what I'll do is I'll pull one, I'll go clean it up, then I'll put it in the new water pump right where it goes. That way, when I go to slap this baby together, I'll know exactly where they go. So I know I've got one here, one here. I've got these 2 long ones here, got this one here, these here, and these brackets go on this one and they swing up to that one. So I'll clean all these bolts up, get this all ready to go, and I'll just set the bolts right back in here. Probably should have done that earlier, but I didn't. So gonna do it now. Then we'll get our gasket, get our pump, get her bolted up. So I had a little change of plans. I put the fuel pump on real quick just because it's easier to get to with the water pump out of the way. That's the way I took it off. Now, to put the fuel pump in, it's really not hard. You just like a Chevy, you just stick your shaft down under and then put your bolts in, you know, little gasket, Permatex on your gasket there, and put her in. You got to kind of, I always put the back bolt in and get it started and then swivel down and then put the front bolt in. Pretty simple. Yeah, I got to get on this water pump. That's where I was. I have my gasket. I figured out what gasket I need. I need this one, and it needs to go on there just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off. I'm going to put my Permatex on this side. Set it on there like that. Put Permatex on this side, and then I'm going to go slap that bad boy on there. So you can see here, I mean, the gasket was up here on the old one, but it isn't really doing anything. Essentially, you really only need Permatex right around there and right around there. Slap this baby on there. Oh, and I probably ought to get the torque specs, because I failed to look those up. Alright guys, so as promised, I just put Permatex around the important bits and a couple little spots there just to kind of help hold everything in location. Now it's time to swap that baby over. Toss her on the motor. So, get you guys propped up here. Another bolt. Got this bad boy here. This bolt goes through here. This bolt goes through here. And this bolt goes through here. Trying to figure out how I'm going to torque this baby here. I can't get to it. And I put a little bit of anti-seize on these two in the back because I am no fool. Those were the ones that gave me all that drama. So that's going to go on right like that. And that one there needs torqued, and that one there needs torqued. So I think what I'm going to do, since this one up here doesn't really do anything, don't mean nothing, I'm going to swing this down like this. Now I'm going to torque everything down, and then I'll swing those brackets up into place. I'll swing these brackets up into place after I get everything else torqued down and let it sit for a little bit. And I'm going to torque the important bolts first. By important bolts, I mean the ones that are around the water jackets. So I'll crisscross to these two. And because it's a Ford, I got to switch sockets. I can do this one. And I can come over and do this one. Come down and do this one. Come over and do this one. I can switch sockets. Do this one up top. I'll come back and do this one if I can find it. Okay, that one's supposed to be torqued per the book. That one's torqued per the book. So I'll do this one. Switch my sockets back again. That one's torqued. That one's torqued. That one's torqued. That one's torqued. Okay, so we'll give these the old good luck bump. There's that one. There we go. Now, I'll pull this one out. Swing our bracket up. There we go. Yep, can't get to that. So them babies are good to go. Here it is. Now, this thing's actually in pretty good shape around here. It does have a little bit of a groove war there, but nothing that I'm too worried about. And we did clean that up and paint those. If you remember, I'm just putting a little bit of wheel bearing grease right around that, just to help that slide in there and to help keep it from leaking. And I did put a little bit of oil on that seal before I put the timing cover on, so it has a little bit in there. You don't want too much grease because you don't really want the grease getting down in your oil, but I mean, that much ain't gonna hurt nothing. Line this baby up. Should be simple enough. On we go. Now this said like 70 to 90, so I put my torque wrench at 85. We're obviously not there because it keeps turning a little bit. I will put one of our bolts in. Here. And get a pry bar in there to hold her still. There's a bolt. Put another one in that side there. Well, the weekend's getting away from me. I gotta get thrashing this thing back together. Now that we got the water pump on, fuel pump, got the harmonic balancer on there, got her torque down good. Yeah, I'm just gonna start bolting all this stuff back together. I think you guys know how that goes. I got my little bypass hose for the water pump. I got my heater core hose that I'm gonna loop around and bypass that. We've got our power steering pump bracket to bolt back on, our alternator to bolt back on. All pretty much easy stuff. Got the pulley on the bottom to toss on there, get all our belts back on. So I'm gonna put you on time lapse and I'll just get thrashing this stuff together. Here we are, guys. I am ready to fire this thing up. Now, the timing chain and water pump is done. That wasn't too terrible. I haven't even loosened this distributor because it did run before, so it should fire up and at least run, and then I can adjust it from there if I need to. But as far as the timing chain and the water pump go, that was not a terrible job. It could have been a little bit easier. I'm not a Ford guy, I'm gonna be honest. You guys already know that. I mentioned it like 40 times, but it really wasn't terrible. The biggest advice I have for you is just put those 4 bolts in the bottom of the timing cover first. Snug them down, get all your bolts started by hand, and then loosen them up a little bit. Torque it on, torque it down. Once I figured that out, you know, I was off to the races. It didn't lose me no 4 hours of time or anything crazy, but yeah, it was just kind of annoying for a few minutes till I got that kind of figured out. But as far as the timing chain and all that stuff goes, that's how you do it. Get her done. Now, I did clean the wiring and all that stuff up. I got a new plug coming for the distributor. And I got my vacuum gauge here so I can tweak that. I'm just going to assume this thing's going to fire right off and I can start tuning on the carburetor and get it running really good. But yeah. Like, share, subscribe. Tell all your friends. I'll post some other videos of stuff I'm doing around the shop, around my melon up here like I always do. And yeah, wish me luck on the van, guys. I'm going to shove it outside right now and see if I can't get this thing to light off. And if you enjoyed the content, let me know in the comments below. Is there anything I screwed up Is Ford superior to Chevy and I'm just a big whiny baby? I don't know. You can be the judge of that. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, keep on wrenching. Peace.